Hello, welcome to Creative You Knitting and Crocheting Podcast. It's a 15-minute podcast to spend time with you talking about knitting, crocheting, and just life in general. Our theme this week is encouragement and compliments. So I am wearing my Reyna shawl, and when you see these on Ravelry, they're usually done with a thin yarn, but this was done with a worsted weight yarn called Plymouth Kudo, and it makes for a very different looking shawl, I think. And it's very easy to do, and with this type yarn and I think a size 10.5 needle, it really flew. So it's still cold outside. Even with something like this, it was cold. This is a cotton, I think, rayon blend, and not warm like wool, but it would be really great for summer. So I have lots of projects on the needles, and yet today, serendipity, I cast on something else. Excuse me 1 minute. So, do you ever feel like sometimes you just can't help yourself? Excuse me, I have a chronic dry mouth. You're probably thinking, can't this woman get through 15 minutes without drinking? It was kind of a funny thing. There's a knitting, crocheting group that formed in Littlestown, which is about 6 miles away, on Monday evenings, and one of the customers who's very enthusiastic about this was telling one of the other customers, oh, you should come. It's at an ice cream place that also has soup and sandwiches, and she was trying to explain to Sharon that they are trying to support the owner, and so they try to buy ice cream or soup or sandwich or whatever. But what she was saying to Sharon is, come and, buy a drink, buy a drink or something. I didn't realize that Sharon was thinking an alcoholic drink. And after Holly left, Sharon says to me, why do I have to buy a drink? And sometimes what we say, we don't realize how someone else is going to take it. So this actual shawl with this yarn and this pattern, someone else had done. And I liked it so much that I copied. Now, is copying bad or is copying a compliment? So years ago, I read a story about a woman who liked to do all kind of crafty things, and she noticed that her neighbor across the street was always copying her. If she put a cute little wreath with Easter eggs and a bunny, her neighbor would do it. And it really got under her skin, and it was quite annoying. And Christmas was coming, and her neighbor put out an old-fashioned sled and decorated it in a certain way that was very appealing. And this woman found herself wanting to copy it, but it was the very thing that made her irritated at her neighbor. And that's when she realized that copying is a compliment. It's saying, oh, I love what you did. Creatively, I love it. And would you mind if I did the same thing? So I don't really mind copying. So today I ran over to the shop to do some things, and I saw that someone had done this cowl with this very yarn. And forget the other projects for a day or two. This is Cascade 220 Aran Splatter. If you can see those little splatters, the yarn is super to work with. I am loving every single stitch. This is a sampler cowl. I will call it a sampler cowl. And, I pulled this page up because the book I'm reading, the newspaper man that is attracted to her admired her coppery colored hair in the coronet. And I had to look up exactly what coronet meant. And it's like braiding your hair and putting it in a crown around your head. And it could be many different ways of doing that. Oh, that's pretty. My great-grandmother was, I think, 83 when she died, and she always had her hair braided and curled around and pinned. And one time when she was sick, I had the opportunity to see her with her hair down, and it was way down to her hips, long gray hair. It was quite a memorable thing for me. So, who is the author of this pattern? Vikki Perkins from Alberta, Canada. And as you can see, she has 2 pages of designs, and they are all cowls. So obviously she loves to design cowls. And the one that I chose, oh, you might hear Patches crying. It's funny, no one wanted to adopt Patches, and now that we brought him home, we're getting calls on him. And so this is called Ammolite Cowl II, and you see it in the rainbow colors, which, well, not necessarily rainbow, but because the name of it had to do with a gem produced by fossilized ammonites that settled to the ocean floor, and then a mineral reacted with it and caused a very opal-like beauty. But mine isn't done with these beautiful colors. And mine, you know, I think the older I get, the more I love the neutrals. And this reminds me, I've kind of been on an ice cream kick, of pistachio and butter pecan. I don't know if you can see all those little flecks, probably not. But it also reminds me of being in the woods. This yarn is really soft, and I don't know how my striping is going to be, but the gal that made this, Cheeky Mom, that is the result that she got. So I don't know that I'll get a stripe in the middle. It would be nice if it finished with the green, how I started, but it's a free pattern. It's a sampler type, and it goes pretty fast. I mean, I'm just loving it. I'm going to have to go and get a second skein, but I'm actually showing you the reverse. So I don't know why this couldn't be reversible. And this one is called the Ammolite Cowl II. She has one that's a #1, but yeah, why couldn't this be reversible if this is the reverse side? It's still very pretty. So I think if I go get my yarn, by tomorrow this will be done. We were talking about women's rights and everything, and back in the late 1890s when this was written, which was the time my great-grandmother was born, nobody really wanted to be married to a female doctor. It was very unfeminine to enter into the male world of intellect. And yeah, today things are different. I went to university medical school in 1994 to 1998, and is that right? And our class was 51% women, I think, and 49% male. So things were really changing. And one of the doctors I met along the way said it really took women to make medicine gentler and more, what is the word? Men were so hard-nosed and, oh, if we work sick, and to make it more humane for doctors. So in sharing that book, I talked how our main character, Letty, would use a lot of homeopathic things, and this is lanolin. You can get it in small jars, I think for $6, and bigger jars. I sell it at the shop. This is a 2-ounce bottle, and Mr. Chester from Sistari Sheep in, I think, Augusta Springs, Virginia, actually makes this. It does have a sheepy smell, but if you have rough elbows or rough heels, apply a little bit of this once a day, and in 2 days, it is remarkable. If you have sores inside your nose, a little dab, it is amazing how people suffer for months. And then a little bit, I don't want to make it sound like a miracle drug, but it's pretty amazing. So no one has really been pouring in compliments that changed their lives, but there is a Encourage TV on YouTube, which does very uplifting movies. And one of the movies I loved was Different Drummers, but last night, my husband and I saw a movie called Mr. What, who got out of jail after 22 years of being wrongly accused, went to a town and everybody was against him. He couldn't do anything right. It's like he couldn't sneeze without being accused of something. And the ending was so wonderful because saying the name Mr. What became a blessing on people's lips. Oh, I hope you get to watch Mr. What. He had a big long name, and every time he'd spew out his name, people would say, what? So he'd say, just call me Mr. What. So I came across a Workbasket 1974. These are very memorable for me because my grandmother lived next door. She was a knitter and crocheter, and these always came in the mail, and she would let me look through them. And I saw a couple interesting things. A fair amount of crochet mittens for children, and I think I would like to try these. And there's a little baby bonnet. I'm sorry, I didn't leave that up very long. But there's a crocheted sweater button down that I like. I like it. Coats & Clark Red Heart 3-ply pompadour yarn, 84% wool and 16% rayon. A steel crochet hook, 0? Really? I'm thinking, really? Why so tiny? And they only show one picture, but I'm kind of enamored by that. Of course, they always had recipes. If you're at all familiar with this book, they had a section on plants, a section on books. Oh, burial insurance with no prior exam. Outstanding elastic hose. We had a store in the outskirts of town that had been a general store for I think 100 years. And when he closed, he had real hose back from World War II. Those things were so durable that you could take a steel nail file and run that across and it wasn't going to tear. One thing I noticed is everybody was thin. I mean, look how slim his shoulders are. 1974, we didn't have high fructose corn syrup and all the things that make us fat. I also like the knit afghan. I think that's quite nice, done with a worsted yarn. And wow, a psychedelic tote bag. I'm not sure what's psychedelic about it, but and then all their advertisements. So all in all, oh, there is the knit coat with pockets. And that's kind of come back in style. I have some women who have been doing a knit coat. And then the other thing, they had 2 tennis sweaters for men. So just a little like, here's what I've been doing. And I think that's about it. So I'd like to encourage all of you, if you're going through tough times, you're not alone. So keep that beautiful smile and shine, baby, shine.